All right, today we're diving into a book that honestly changed the entire conversation around personal finance for millions of people. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This book didn't just offer tips, it offered a completely different way of looking at money. So let's break down the big ideas. So the whole thing kicks off with a pretty bold question that challenges an idea we've all been taught. You know the one. Go to school, get good grades, get a safe, high-paying job, and you'll be set. But what if that's not the path to wealth at all? What if it's actually the path that keeps you stuck?
And the answer, according to the book, isn't some complex spreadsheet or secret stock-picking formula. Nope, it's all explained through a really simple story. A story that pretty much sets up everything else we're about to talk about.
At the heart of it all are two very different father figures from Kiyosaki's childhood. And these aren't just two guys. They represent two completely opposite philosophies on how money, work, and life really operate.
Okay, so here's the twist. His poor dad was his actual father, a brilliant, highly educated man with a secure government job. I mean, this guy did everything right by society standards, but he struggled with money his whole life. And then you have Rich Dad, his best friend's father. This guy never even finished the 8th grade, but he went on to become one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. So what on earth was the difference?
Well, it all boiled down to their main goal. Poor Dad was laser-focused on financial security. You know, the safety of a guaranteed paycheck. Rich Dad, on the other hand, was all about financial freedom, which is a totally different ballgame. He wanted to get to a point where he didn't have to work for money.
And that leads us to the single biggest idea in the entire book. This is the one core principle that separates these two mindsets. This is it. This is the whole game. Most people get caught in a cycle, right? They work hard to earn a paycheck, use that paycheck to pay bills, run out of money, and then have to go back to work. The rich, however, focus on building or buying things that generate money all on their own. They escape the trap of trading time for dollars. Now, that sounds great in theory, doesn't it? Make money work for you. But what does that actually mean? How do you even start? Well, Kiyosaki says it all begins with learning a very simple language that, for some reason, they just don't teach in school. And that language really just comes down to two simple words: assets and liabilities. If you can truly understand the difference between these two, you're on your way to playing the game of wealth by a whole new set of rules. It's really this simple. An asset is anything you own that generates income for you. Think of it like a little money machine that you own. It just keeps putting cash into your pocket whether you're working or not. And a liability? Well, it's the exact opposite. It's a money vacuum. It's something you own that constantly takes money out of your pocket. The big trap, as the book points out, is that so many of us spend our lives buying liabilities that we think are assets. So let's look at some examples to make it super clear. Assets are things like stocks, a rental property that brings in more rent than it costs, or a business that makes a profit. Liabilities? That's your car loan, credit card debt, even the mortgage on the house you live in, because it costs you money every single month. Rich Dad's entire strategy was just this: spend your life buying assets and do everything you can to minimize liabilities. Of course, buying assets like stocks or real estate can feel scary. It involves risk. And this brings us to another huge difference in mindset between the two dads. It's all about their relationship with fear.
Poor Dad's advice always came from a place of fear. His big rule was don't lose money, which meant basically don't take any risks. But Rich Dad saw it differently. His advice was don't avoid risk, learn to manage it. He believed that playing it too safe was actually the riskiest move of all. And here's the key lesson from that. The book argues that risk isn't really in the investment, the risk is in the investor. If you don't know anything about real estate, then buying a property is super risky. But if you've educated yourself, it's an opportunity. So it's not the asset that's risky, it's financial ignorance that creates all the risk.
So if we put all these pieces together, how do we actually start walking this path? What's the destination we're even trying to get to? This is the finish line. And notice, it doesn't say become a bazillionaire. The goal is much more concrete. Financial freedom is that specific moment when the passive income coming in from all your assets is more than your monthly living expenses. Once you hit that point, going to work becomes a choice, not a necessity. That is freedom. And the book gives us a simple 4-step plan to get started. First, you have to know where your money's going. Just track it. Second, start paying down your liabilities, especially the high-interest debt that's draining you. Third, start buying assets, even if it's super small. And finally, and this one's huge, get comfortable with making mistakes.
Rich Dad caught that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. It's how you learn.
And when you zoom out, it really comes down to this. It's about choices. What do we do with our time when we're not working? Do we spend it consuming and being entertained, or do we invest some of that time in educating ourselves, learning about money, and finding opportunities? Over years, that simple choice makes all the difference.
Because really, the whole point of Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just to get a bigger pile of money. It's about completely redesigning your life. When your assets are paying for your lifestyle, you finally own your time. And owning your time, well, that's the ultimate form of wealth. So the real question the book leaves you with is, what are you going to do with yours?